You're listening to the Empowered Divorce Podcast, where you practice being the chooser in your life again, one day at a time. Thanks for joining me. Hello, my amazing listeners, doers of hard things, and just downright badass women. Gosh, I hope you either believe this or are practicing to believe this. And if not, you can borrow my belief for now. We have been talking about the ultimate act of self-love in the month of February, and that is boundaries, boundary work, boundary creation, boundaries for you, and how to stop giving unsafe people full access to you, becoming empowered through them. And today we're going to talk about elevating yourself because of them, elevating your life experience through them. Because when you become boundaried, when you become the chooser of who gets access to you and how they get access to you, you will absolutely have the capacity now to elevate your life experience. I presented recently this acronym at the AppSets conference, but I wanted to take more time here to go through it. I swear Dan and I could have talked for hours on our topic, but they only gave us 40 minutes. And I think we even went 48. So I had to skim through this part really briefly. But if you take the word empower, okay, this is the acronym that I created to help you boundary set. When you think of this word empower, now this is going to be, I'll put this all in the show notes, just like a brief description in case you guys are walking or driving and can't write everything down right now. But if you take the word empower, then this guide is going to help you set boundaries through and post divorce. So there's so much activation through and post divorce, right? Especially because the abuse will amp up once they realize that they are losing control over you. I see this happen, honestly, 9 out of 10. I would probably say 10 out of 10, but I'm going to go ahead and just say 9 out of 10 to give a little bit of leeway for those that might not have this happen. But 9 out of 10 times, even though your partner at the time might be saying, I'm not going to screw you over. I'll take care of you in the divorce. I'm not going to try and I'm not hiding anything. I promise this is all the fight. Whatever they are saying that seems kind at the time, that seems like they are caring for your well-being and your future is crap. Because I know I'm being really blunt here. This is why we need boundaries. But and I talked a little bit about this in last boundary episode, but this is transactional caring. This is not kind caring. And so what happens is that they will do this because they need something from you. They need you to agree and be agreeable so that they can either continue to hide or get away with something. They don't want you to have your way. This also is how they continue to show up in control and power over. But a person who cares, genuinely kindly cares, would not have behaved in the way that they have up to this point that led to divorce. And so we can get really confused there. Again, I talked a little about this last time. Go back and listen to that. But I'm really driving this home because of how much I see this happen. And when they start to lose this sense of power and control, then they're going to amp up the different ways that they're going to try to control and have power and assert power. So you're going to experience a lot of boundary violations. We want to set them effectively. So I created this acronym to help you set these effectively to have the best chance of having the impact for you that it is intended for. Again, take the word empower, and E stands for evaluate. Here we are taking an evaluation of what's going on in the present moment. So reflect on your emotions and triggers and identify where boundaries are needed. When you notice yourself out of the window of tolerance, right? Activated, triggered. This is a great opportunity to practice slowing down and taking a moment to evaluate the situation, circumstance that led up to the intense out of window tolerance activated trigger. What are the facts? What is the meaning that your brain is giving you about this? What emotions are showing up? Evaluate what is in your control in this situation or circumstance and what isn't. Once you evaluate what is actually happening where you are and where you are needing to implement a boundary for yourself, remember, most of these are for you. So this isn't I need to put a boundary on him or that person, right? That's controlling. It's this is what I need so I can stay in my window of tolerance, stay safe emotionally, mentally, physically, etc. Then, after we evaluate, it's the M, the method of communication. Does this boundary need to be communicated? Right? Remember, most of these are not needed or necessary to be communicated with the other person anymore. But let's just check in with yourself here. Does this boundary need to be communicated? And if so, how do you want to communicate this boundary? Not only like write it out, how am I going to communicate it? It's a if you, then I, right? What's the consequence? But also, do you want to email it? Do you want it to go through third party, like you're a lawyer? Do you want to text it, say it in person? Like, what is the best? How do you want to communicate this? And then how will you be responding? Text, email, again, third party, what feels safe to you right now? So if a boundary is crossed, how will you respond? What does that look like within your control bubble, right? And because E and M are a lot of work, which is why y'all are badasses, then we move to P. Well, maybe you have to do that too, but the P is the pause and reconnect, right? Pause and reconnect. Take a moment after you evaluate and after you determine the method of communication around the boundary or lack of communication, but pause and reconnect with yourself. Find your emotional center before responding or even setting, communicating this boundary. Because at this moment, you haven't actually done anything yet. Okay, we're not in the action part because the E and the M are going to take some time. Like I can bust through these and explain them really quickly, but in all reality, tangibly, what this looks like in reality is slowing it down and really letting yourself feel the emotions that are going to come with slowing this down and evaluating and then determining, do I need a boundary? What does that look like? What's the method of communication? Right? That takes time. Once you get to that place, we want to pause. I also really recommend the pause in the sense of like, this is where the 24-hour rule comes in. Wait 24 hours before communicating the boundary or before responding so that we're not responding with these intense emotions. And for many of you in your own situations where you are dealing with a narcissist or narcissistic tendencies, you don't want to respond with emotion at all. So this pause gives you time to feel those emotions within you safely and in peace. Another P. Okay, so E, M, P, now O. Own your agency. Recognize your power to make decisions that align with your values and protect your boundaries. This one, this O, owning your agency, is going to help you when you feel the fear creep in, the worry, the apprehension of communicating, creating the boundary, maybe some self-doubt in there as well. You own your agency, your right to choose the experience you want to have in your life. If you don't want to experience someone texting you rude, demeaning messages, then you have a right to not receive those. If you value your safety in your space, then you have the agency to not allow certain people into that space, your space. If you value healthy healing, then this means you no longer discuss certain topics with certain people. You have agency to choose that. Don't lose your footing here when things start to feel scary or worrisome. When you align with your values, your rights, the boundaries protect those, and then you walk forward. and you just keep on walking to W. So we have E, evaluate. M, what's the method of communication with those boundaries? P is pause and reconnect. O, owning your agency in all of it. And then W, this is where you're going to watch for manipulation. Because, of course, when you stop giving people full access to you, right, this boundaryless access, where they have maybe had this boundaryless access for years, and now they don't, especially when they have felt entitled to that access, they will manipulate. Bet on it. So W is watch, not ignore or blame yourself when the fit hits the shan because you just set a limit on how much access someone has to you. We're going to watch for it. Be aware of any attempts at manipulation from your ex or others so that you can protect those boundaries. This is when I would, and I'm going to put this in the show notes again. This is where I would highly, 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 highly recommend going over and getting Sarah Morales' Deconstructing Gaslighting Empowerment course. I am certified in that course and can help walk you through all of those methods, techniques, and tactics, because the more you are knowledgeable and aware of those, you can watch for those a lot faster, which is going to save you a lot of unnecessary suffering. How many times I'll see clients set the boundary, create it, and almost like they just expect that it's going to be observed, respected. And because of the manipulation and the different tactics and techniques that are used to weasel the way past it, through it, over it, under it, whatever that limit is, they're going to cross that boundary. Sometimes it can take you a while to realize, oh, holy crap, they just broke that boundary. Or, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that just happened. So when we are watching for it, we are on alert. And unfortunately, when someone is still in a power over attack mode, and for a lot of you still post-divorce, maybe a year, sometimes unfortunately 2 years after, you're going to want to continue to watch for the manipulation or the different tactics and techniques that are going to be used to bust through and break through those boundaries. Okay, so EMPOW, now E again. This one is going to be for emotional regulation. Be very careful not to give these emotions the keys to the car and drive off the cliff. There will be times when they want to, or they want to drive into someone, but empower and elevate is all about you. Here, you're going to want to focus on your own emotional regulation. Now, hear me very clearly. This is not ignore emotions, shove, avoid, or resist emotions. It's feel it and then realign with your truth. Because what I see happen with boundaries, where people get stuck so many times, is that they will do the E, right? They'll evaluate, they'll recognize where the boundary needs to be created, they'll communicate the boundary, they'll even know what the consequence is. They'll see the manipulation or the different tactics or the boundary being violated. And then we have an emotional dysregulation, an escalation, or a trauma-like response. And this is only harming you. This is only harming you. And again, 9 out of 10 times, this reaction, this emotional dysregulation to a busted through boundary is exactly what the abuser wants. This is what they want you to do. I remember to this day, the moment that I realized this, because I was spending so much time in my emotional activation, dysregulation, responding to the boundary violation, explaining how, no, this is exactly what I said. I go and look through past messages, emails, texts, where I did clearly communicate. But here I was being gaslit. Here I was being told, no, you didn't communicate this, right? Being told half truths, being spun around, feeling crazy all over again in order to speak up, stand up, fight for my truth to this person that, number one, isn't safe, and number two, is actually trying to create this in me. I became so dysregulated. I had this moment where here I was going back, copying messages, repasting, trying to prove myself. And it was one of those not me, but higher power kind of experiences, right? Where I heard so clearly, like, he wants this. This meaning my reaction, my response, the time, the energy that I was taking and spending in emotional dysregulation, trying to prove my rightness, prove that I'm not crazy, was giving him access to me. You've heard me talk about picking up the rope. This is picking up the damn rope. This is why I have included this one in this acronym, emotional regulation. When this happens, because, it will for most of you, you can feel all of the feelings, right? You can feel the frustration that comes with this. You can feel the disgust. You can feel the anger, to feel all of it. And we want to feel it within that window of tolerance. Because remember, window of tolerance doesn't mean happy, joyful, skip to my loo, right? This is, I am going to choose to feel this because this kind of behavior, this is ridiculous. This isn't healthy. This is abusive. And I'm going to emotionally regulate myself in this, meaning I'm going to feel it. I'm going to process it. I'm going to recognize the behaviors that are creating this. I'm going to see the reality behind this, that this is bait, right? This is part of the whole bait and switch, Jekyll and Hyde, all the things. And then I'm going to realign with my truth, right? This goes back to the evaluate. I'm going to realign with my values, with my reality, with what I have a human right to, because these boundaries are aligned with my truth, aligned with my values. And this is what's going to help you emotionally regulate when you do this. Just because you set boundaries does not mean they are going to be respected or that the people will find ways to break through that gate and try to access you without permission. This will almost always happen, especially the moment you limit their access. It will be push after push after push and poke in all the holes in the fence. You will need EMPOW and then emotionally regulate every time. This is not a bad thing. It doesn't mean that something is wrong. It doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong. It means you're doing it right. Then the last one is R. R is reinforce self-care, because you are doing hard things. And boundary work, the root and post-divorce, is hard. You need to take time from being that badass to just be, right? Self-care, this caring, nurturing for yourself in all ways, this has to be reinforced over and over and over after all of this EMPOWE work in navigating boundaries. Take time to nurture yourself emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually. Recognize that setting boundaries can be emotionally taxing. Making self-care a non-negotiable part of this boundary setting is absolutely going to help you. It's going to make all of this more sustainable rather than trying to do this and exhaust yourself through it. Okay, so there's the acronym that is going to be so helpful for all of you when you are boundary setting. Now, I want to spend the remaining time focusing on elevate. This one can be hard, emotional, and may take some time to think it through. I know that this is where I had to do a lot of work myself, but also I do a lot of work with my clients around this because sometimes the brain can get stuck here. Imagining your life, your future, a new future, knowing what you want, just knowing what you want that to look like, knowing what you need that life to provide you. Of course, hello, shut down, hello, grief. And now the temptation to run from this work is here. So first, you just want to validate the space and that it is hard. Of course, it's hard. You are grieving the life that you thought you'd have, the life you planned on, worked for, and was even led to believe that you were getting this and shared it with your person. To think of a life outside of that one that you worked so hard on. Oh, right? Like it can feel overwhelming and just too much. If you pause here today and want to focus on the Empower acronym tool, honor that space for yourself. This elevate does not need to be rushed. If you are ready to elevate, to move to that next right step for you, just right now, to start taking those steps in living right? Living in choice, your choice to take your power back in your life and know that you absolutely can create the life that you want. Then let's keep going one step at a time because your ability to choose, especially when you didn't choose your trauma, is vital to your healing journey. Vital. I want to share a few examples of this concept of elevate just to make it a little bit more tangible so you can see what I'm talking about here. The first example, my life in my past marriage was he earns money outside the home, I earn my keep in the home. Okay, maybe not that clearly spoken, but I'm just saying. Either way, when I divorced, I was not at all sure how I was going to earn a living. I didn't work outside the home. And my baking and pastry art schooling was not going to earn me a living. It would make me work nights. So the child support was going to be enough to help support the kids while I started a cleaning company and really built this business to help additionally provide for the children. The problem was I wasn't getting child support. A few hundred here and there, more when he used his new wife's money to pay child support, but that lasted a year. But let's just say, so really no consistency, not a lot of child support. Let's just say that there's a couple 100,000 in back child support. Anyways, for a while, I was spending so much time and energy to get him to pay, trying to get the legal consequences enforced, right? Like this is a legal obligation. So come on, legal, obligate him, right? Trying to get that enforced, being told by people that I needed to do this, right? That I needed to enforce this, that this was my job to make sure that he pays and supports the kids. I mean, it's not my job, but this is what I was believing at the time, right? Well, I was working 17-hour days trying to make ends meet, feeling like there is no way I am going to be able to support myself and 4 kids. Like, no way. I have to get him to pay child support. This is what he should be doing. This is what he's supposed to be doing. So I'm filling out paperwork, standing in long lines at DPS, calling lawyers, going to court. So much time and energy. My energy was focused on him, right? Getting him to do something here. Now, before I go on, I want to state very clearly, I absolutely believe that a man who doesn't meet his obligations as a parent to his children, to support his children, to the absolute best of his abilities, is a serious condemnation, not only I believe to God, and a man of such little character, little integrity, and lack of honor is despicable. And I was not elevating my life because I was trying to get a porcupine to stop being a porcupine or an ape to not be an ape, like whatever animal you want to use here. Okay, but you get my point. I wasn't going to change him or get him to do something honorable when he is not behaving honorably, when he is not showing that this is his character. So this want that I had, this need that I had, was all based in how hard I tried to get him to do something about it. I had to ask myself, what life experience do I want to have? Do I need? Well, I want to be able to provide for my kids. And I don't want to be tirelessly trying to get him to pay child support. And I needed to make more money. So I let go of the rope. I stopped controlling what I can't control. I stopped trying to make someone responsible, accountable, reliable, and a man of integrity. Yes, this is a legal, lawful obligation he had, but law can only and will only do so much. But once I let that go, I started getting more business and making more money and found more options to get what I needed without him. This didn't happen overnight. It wasn't suddenly I have all this money, but the less energy I gave to this fruitless fight, the more energy I gave to elevating my life because I started living it the way that I wanted. I didn't want to worry every month if he would pay or not. I had it literally marked on my calendar, the due date of that child support. Not only was I having anxiety before, during, and then the whole month after trying to collect. I didn't want to go to court every time he was arrested. I chose to elevate my experience in my life because I decided that I was going to create a new boundary for myself at this time. I will not let his lack of honor mean that I can't honor my own obligations to my children. I was getting so hung up on his parental obligations that I was focusing less on my own parental obligations. I was working hard, but the energy behind it was still more focused on him and his not doing rather than, you know what? I am capable and I'm going to believe that I'm capable. I'm going to step into that with empowerment. And remember, this doesn't mean that I was happy and skippy joy about it. Oh, I felt the emotions, all the emotions that you can possibly imagine. Still do in time to times. Literally just had one last week. Another story for another day. I could see more options available to me, more opportunities. That letting go helped me to see more of what is in my power, what's in my line of sight, what I have agency over. More doors opened along the way. I saw things that I would not have seen because that energy and that focus and that vision was over on his side of the street. I started to get what I wanted and what I needed. Elevated. I leveled up, so to speak. What do you want? What do you need? And what do you need to let go of to get that? Okay, another way that we can elevate through boundaries. At one point, all of his family members were either blaming me, hating me, mad at me, or didn't even know what to say to me, but I was ostracized very quickly. Maybe there were a few Christ-like, dutiful attempts to reach out, but it wasn't that heartfelt, empathetic, seeking to understand reaching out, right? I, on the other hand, was still trying to get someone over there on that side of the street to hear me, see me, and believe me. For one, I thought if they could just hear me out and believe me, hear my story, the parts that I've been hiding from everyone about what's really been going on, if they would just understand what I have been learning about addiction, infidelity, and abuse, then maybe they would get him the help that he needs. At one point, I was in communication with one sibling that I would talk to every once in a while. I realized that I was doing this more because I'd get a little glimpse of what was really going on in the minds of the family, or a little idea of where he was even at right now in his journey, his healing, and his addiction, and whatever was going on. I felt this need to still be validated, believed. And if I'm really being honest with myself, it was a little vindicating. Like, see, I told you I wasn't crazy, right? Y'all are starting to feel crazy. See, I knew I wasn't crazy. This was holding me back from elevating my own life experience. So the boundary that I had for myself was I am not going to reach out to them when I'm wanting a little insider information or validation, or even to help them with him, which really was the majority of my reaching out intentions. I just thought if I could help them help him, then my kids would have a better experience with their dad, right? I was seeing such impact on my children that I was like, all right, this is one door that's still a little bit open. Maybe I can get through to this person who can then get through that person who can then get through to him. And then maybe they'll get through to my kids, right? That whole triangulation, drama triangle scenario. The boundary that I needed to elevate my experience was to stop doing that. I needed to be free of that control, that sense of false control and belief that I could help them help him. I wanted to live a life where I believed that my kids were capable enough to figure out their own relationship with their dad without my air quote helping. This elevated me into freedom, space in my mind. And then this actually led to healing in my body. For me, this was like one of those last pieces to let go and release myself from, to boundary myself, to protect my emotions, to protect my energy, to protect me from getting into that drama triangle or that triangulation. It was then that I could start really processing the trauma of the secondary betrayal from his family because I let go and elevated my healing. It's so hard to believe that you can elevate your life experience and circumstances when there is so much outside of you externally that can impact you, right? It's easy, natural, understandable how we can look at these impacts and let them act upon us rather than stepping into our agency and empowerment and make adjustments, right? We don't want to become subject to the impact, Rather, we want to adjust in the way that you choose to protect yourself from that impact where possible. When you are ready, you can choose how you want to think and feel about all of it to grow, rise up, stand up, free up, and create more because you believe that you have a right, a calling, and a purpose. It is easier to feel burned down, dragged down, stopped, blocked, or incapable of more. But you are made for more. Growing through the grief of all of this is empowerment. Rising up out of bed every morning to face the fears that kept you up all night is empowering. Standing up for what you have a human right to stand up for, your values, your freedom, and stand up to the opposition of those is empowered. To free up space in your mind and body of things that you cannot control will create a belief in you that is so rooted in purpose that is empowered. Boundaries make space for this. They create this and they protect this. Mastering boundaries makes you the chooser in your life and supports the life experiences that you want and need to have because you can. Take care, everybody. Trying to navigate boundaries, learn to be the master of them, learning to believe new things, trusting yourself again, managing triggers, all the things can be really overwhelming sometimes, but that's where I come in because I also understand that it can be a little overwhelming to access these different resources. My Believing in You coaching membership is such a great way to get massive amounts of coaching, tools, concepts, and support at a budget-friendly cost. I have loved seeing the members in this group peel back all the different layers of the onion and really start seeing what's underneath and what's keeping them from believing in themselves. Head over to the show notes or go to amywoolsey.com and click on Believing in You. You too can join me on Wednesdays and start getting coached around things like boundaries. Start seeing why your brain thinks that you can't actually be the chooser of your life and why it thinks you can't actually create the life that you want. Let's dig in, but you can start believing in you too. See you soon.
Was born to fly and spread these wings and find my own. I am coming home. Today will be the day it all will change. Today will be the day. Today will be the day. I was made to